Hey there, it's Phil from the Humans Connecting team. Our podcast is all about serving you, supporting, challenging, and inspiring you to become a connected human. The content of our podcast is of a general nature, and consuming this content is not the same as seeking individual advice from a connection mentor, a registered mental health professional, or a coach. Conversations about human connection address loneliness. And here at Humans Connecting, we're all about destigmatizing loneliness. And we do that by talking about loneliness and some of the sources of loneliness openly. This episode covers complex topics, including my suicide attempt, navigating my sexuality, and accounts of physical violence. This may be difficult to hear and to sit with. If, throughout our conversation, this is true for you, we encourage you to please contact a mental health hotline. The link in the episode description can help you find some immediate support for many places that you might be in the world. As always, we suggest that you meet yourself where you are and how you are right now. Please consider if this is an episode for you. And if you don't feel up to it, we'll be right here when you're ready to press play, or we'll see you in the next episode. Hello, it's Phil. Welcome to the Humans Connecting podcast. Hey, thanks so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. This episode is a bit of a special one because I'm going to walk you through the last few days of my life. It's Monday now. It's the last Monday in March 2024. And I want to sort of walk you through sort of Thursday through to today. And the last few days for me have been pretty tough. And I've been sitting with some big thoughts and big feelings that have come from me, I guess, processing my upcoming 30th school reunion. And in this episode, I'm going to get real with you, and I'm kind of feeling a bit odd about doing this. And I hope that I'm doing this because in me getting real with you, that you can hear the process that I've been using and been going through when, I don't know, you have your school reunion or you're invited to a party or an event or otherwise invited to something that can make you feel uncomfortable. And I'm kind of coming to you on jumping onto the microphone now. I think they say in the business, jumping on hot. I've got some thoughts. Mainly I've been writing down what's been going on in my mind and within me over the past few days as kind of prompts to talk with you. But otherwise, there's not so much of a structure. So I think things could get pretty real. Again, like there is some structure. I want to say hi before we get into all of that. My name is Phil McAuliffe, and I'm the founder of Humans Connecting. And I'm also a global loneliness thought leader and the host of this podcast. When I'm not a global loneliness thought leader or hosting this podcast, I'm a speaker on loneliness and human connection. I commentate on loneliness and human connection in the media. I'm an author, I'm a connection mentor, and really, I'm just a human. I'm a human who's endlessly curious about humans and the human condition. And here at Humans Connecting, we've got two main aims with everything that we do, including our podcast here. The first of those is to destigmatize loneliness. And secondly, it's to help you, wherever you are in the world, whatever you do for work, however you identify as a human, that you get the connection that you need and deserve. We're here to help you get the connection that you need and deserve. And we're right here to support you at humansconnecting.org when you're ready to feel more connected and better equipped to respond to loneliness when you next experience it. Finally, and I just want to share that this finally feels like I'm hanging on to a life raft here. Um, we're a new podcast here at Humans Connecting, and we are a fledgling social impact enterprise. We're a fledgling social enterprise, and we've got bold ambitions to help the world feel more connected because the humans in that world are feeling connected to themselves, to those most important to them, and to their communities. So if this episode or any of our other episodes of the podcast or any of the content that we have on social media or on our website makes you think, supports you, inspires you, please know that letting just one other person know about this episode by sharing this episode or any of the content that we have with them really helps increase our reach, and every little part that you can do helps. So in that part, those parts could also look like you engaging with this on YouTube. It could be leaving a 5-star review if you're so minded on the podcast service through which you're now listening. Any of those things are great to do. They're so helpful for us. They're free for you to do and really help us make an impact that we are called to do. So, right. In episode 3, I shared with you how we here at Humans Connecting feel that you can begin to turn loneliness from a foe, from an enemy, into your friend. And part of that was one of the advice there in that episode was to pay attention to the stories that you tell yourself that, well, aim to keep you safe and small. And those stories kind of sound very seductive, and they're like, sometimes those stories are what immediately comes to our minds and our hearts, really, when mainly our minds, when we've, as I said in the intro, been given an invitation to do something that has us feeling uncomfortable. And those stories can kind of have us leaping immediately to no, I won't do that. And in that episode, I shared with you that this is one of my tells when I'm experiencing loneliness, that the stories that I tell myself are kind of award-winning stories that go to make me feel safe and protect me from what I fear could be judgment. And I shared with you that this has been like, this I've learned that this is one of my tells. And I noticed the other day that I was telling myself some pretty epic stories about what going to an upcoming school reunion would mean for me. And when I identified those, when I sort of realized that I was sort of deep within myself, sort of listening to these stories and kind of stoking the flame of these stories, and and feeding them more and more and more, kind of kindling to kind of turn that little spark into a raging bonfire of like, this is a hell no, not just a no for me not going. I'm really not going because I really don't want to. When I noticed that I was telling myself these stories, I thought, And I want to sort of share this whole experience so far. I'm sure there's a lot more to go. Share this story with you as a way of letting you know that I continue to go through this as well. While I am a loneliness thought leader and have been working on loneliness and unlocking human connection for a number of years now, this still is really like very live within me. And now it's time to share with you so like what I've been going through over the last few days and in how I've been challenging those stories. And it's hard to know exactly where this story begins. And I guess if this was the movie montage, the screen would be going a little blurry, and there'd be if there was Wayne's World going on, they'd be going in that kind of montage flashback thing. And I dare say, if you have a 30-year reunion, you will very much appreciate that Wayne's World reference, because I think we're of the same generation. But my school was a boarding school. And it was a boarding school, and also like the school bit was um, a day school as well, and it was co-ed. So boarding was boys only at that time. At that time, and um, yeah, I lived about 3.5 hours drive away from my school, and my brother went to that school. He's a few years older than me, and I went there in year 7. So first year of high school here in Australia, for context. And I was about 2 weeks after my 12th birthday. So on reflection, I left home when I was 12. And home from that time was a place that I visited rather than I lived. It was Home was where I went on my school holidays, and it was a permanent address, but it was just somewhere that I would always then visit from then on. That's a heavy kind of. When I realized that a few years ago, that sort of sat very heavy with me. Um, and anyway, like I was in year 7, I was terribly homesick, terribly, 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 terribly homesick. And in many respects, I now know that the time at school, um, I really wanted to fit in. I really wanted to not um, be the odd one. And I constantly, desperately wanted to fit in, to be accepted, to be one of the gang, one of all like just all of these things. And sometimes I was successful in doing that. I somehow cracked the code. And I felt that using my mid 40s, late 40s, words here, like I now know that I was, hustling to try and belong. And I kind of cracked the code from time to time. But I don't know, the rules kept on changing. And just as soon as I thought that I could like almost relax, I don't know, something changed. And the world order shuffled around, and I would kind of be scrambling again. And you may not see part of that in you as well. But I know this is common in our early teenage years. And I was doing that, with probably, I forget how many borders there were. But in the late 80s, so this is 1989, um, through to 1994 when I finished school. And I kind of, was successful in fitting in, and then the rules would change, as I said. And when I was 14, things just really weren't going well. I really did not feel that I fitted in anywhere. And things got really dark for me. It was the first year that I was at school without my brother there. He'd finished the year earlier. And I felt really alone. And, 14, puberty was really kicking in. And I had a face like full of acne, braces, just weird and awkward in that delightful teenage way. And yeah, there was just some times there when um, friendships, which I thought were solid, all of a sudden ended. And friends in inverted commas were like, I don't want you to hang around me anymore. And you're too needy, you're too clingy, you're essentially too much. And in saying that out loud now, that's actually really tough. That's really tough. And when you're alone, and far away from home, and you kind of I really kind of was looking around and like trying to find somewhere and somehow that I belonged. And that's a lot for a 14-year-old, isn't it? It's not uncommon, I'll say that, but it's not something that's easy to go through when you're 14. And there were some times that, some teachers stepped in and were really supportive, and the school in its way was very supportive. But it got so bad um, that that kind of hustling to fit in soon came to the attention of some of the other guys that I was living with, kids, not guys, kids that I was living with. And there were times when I was beaten up, but generally my memories of that time were of omnipresent um, tension. And that tension was, I'm kind of repeating myself here. It was ever present. It was just everywhere. And sometimes I didn't get any respite even when I was asleep, because sometimes my tormentor was, was awake. And I learned very quickly that I needed to essentially sleep with one eye open. And it wasn't, generally looking back, it wasn't physical. I was certainly very scared of being beaten up, but it was psychological. It was this relentless kind of pressure, and this reporting back of my words, my actions, reporting back and being analyzed by others and being critiqued by others. And sometimes it was physical. I do recall very vividly being beaten up by a group. And there was a time, I'm not quite sure what the kids call it nowadays, but back then we called it stacks on. And, you know, put someone down on the floor and then lie on top of them, and then someone else would lie on top of them and top of them, and the stacks on was the call. And I remember being stacked on, and I lost count. I lost count of how many how many other teenage boys were on top of me. But it was a lot. It was a lot. They were piled very high. And I remember like protesting. I was like screaming for help. I was screaming for help and there was nothing. And I remember just thinking, don't say anything. No one's coming for you. No one's coming for, and no one wants you here. So I stopped. I stopped like fighting back. I stopped kind of wanting to, I stopped. I stopped. And it was kind of at that moment where I'm like, ah, like if you listen to them, they're like, they don't want you here. They want you gone. And I remember asking to leave, but the opportunities like for education where I grew up were pretty limited. And this was it. And yeah, I contemplated suicide. I was really um like yeah, and attempted it. And pardon me, just pressing pause on myself for just a moment. There's a tell here when I'm being very edgy, and that is like my throat starts to constrict. It's just like as if I'm trying to stop myself talking. So if you're getting sore ears from hearing me like clearing my throat and stuff, which sounds just so delightful, doesn't it? That's why this is what I'm noticing within me, and also when I'm being vulnerable and at my edge, um, my beyond my throat feeling like it's closing up, I start to sweat, and I'm like it's a hot day in Mumbai in my t-shirt right now. That's a great graphic, isn't it? Great visual. But I did I did attempt suicide, and someone um, kind of put two and two together and stopped me. And I remember being relieved that they stopped me, but also really angry because I'm like, what else can I do? What else can I do? And as a 14-year-old, I went to a psychologist in Melbourne, so which was, I don't know, like a day's trip away. Um, where I went to school was about 60, 70 Ks outside of Melbourne. And so I got to go into Melbourne with with someone else from the dorm, um, who I since found out was reporting back to my tormentor what I was saying. Not to the psych, that was just one-on-one, but sort of what I was saying and what I was doing. And I was 14. I was 14. And over that same time, I started to notice that I was attracted to guys. And yeah, there was um, some instances where I was, I'm just going to say it, engaged in some masturbatory exploits. And I was found out. And that was spread around the dorm. Clothes were thrown around the theatre and just humiliated, humiliated, and then talked about casually. So it was, for many reasons why yeah, like the idea of going to a reunion with people who spoke about this in such a careless way is tough. But not only like, there was, kind of the oppression um, of my sort of sexual interest in the way that a Catholic boarding school in the early 90s did. And yeah, I still sort of continue to struggle to fit in and that I belonged. I was pretty good at cricket. Um, and but the sort of social currency at that school was for boys in any case was football, Australian rules football, and I really could not play it. I didn't enjoy it. There was nothing that kind of drew me to the game, but it felt like everybody else around me was obsessed by it. And so, you know, others were, could talk endlessly about football and I just didn't want to. And, I wanted to talk about what was going on in the world, like the Cold War was coming to an end and, what does that mean? And all that kind of stuff. And so I threw myself into schoolwork. And I had some fantastic teachers who saw that interest and really encouraged me and cultivated that. And I started to follow my own interests. And 14-year-old me was pretty like gutsy, I have to say. And it was this like I started debating. And I would sort of became a pretty good debater and began to enjoy public speaking. And I started to sort of widen my social circle and widen my interests. And sometimes that meant that I was the only person from the dorm who was doing something different, which um, in when I was 14 in year nine, that was tough, but it got easier in years 10, 11, and 12. And what happened was like over time, like the size of um, the class grew and I started to make some more friends. But overwhelmingly, my ideas of my memories of high school weren't pleasant. They weren't pleasant. They weren't fun. They're not something that I recall as something that I'd want to go back to. And this was like there was no kind of 1990s, teenage movie kind of scenario going on here. This was like I couldn't wait for the end of year 12, and then I was out. I was out. And then by the time I got to university in 1995, like I was surrounded by people who were, smart and just sort of a bit daggy like me. And I really didn't want to look ever in the rearview mirror. It was so uncomfortable. And the feelings that it evoked were so much shame within me. Like um, some of the memories were so imbued in shame and actually were the sort of start of how I came to be um, lonely in my middle age. I really wanted to avoid the discomfort that came from those memories, and I wanted to avoid the people who brought up um, those who would bring up just by like like their names being mentioned through no fault of their own, but um, would bring up those memories for me. And it was yeah, like so the 10-year anniversary came and went. I didn't go. 20th came and went. I didn't go. 25th came and went, and mercifully at the 25th, I was not in Australia. So I'm like, oh, sorry, can't come. And then here we are at the 30th. Now, last year, here in Canberra, person who's been organising in our year level all the reunions, she was in Canberra. We'll call her M. And she was in Canberra, and her partner, like beautiful story how they got together, but he was also in our year level. We'll call him G. And M and G were in Canberra, and M reached out to me and said, it would be great to see you. Let's have coffee. And so Jeff and I went down to have coffee with them one morning when they were visiting in Canberra last year. And it was a great chat. Like we were there for about 2 hours. And at the end of the conversation, Em's like, there's the 30th anniversary, 30th reunion next year. It'd be great if you could come. I'm like, thanks, but no, I'm not ready for it. And then last week, there were some emails that I'd seen and I'm like, still no. And I got a message on Facebook Messenger from Em going, I know it was a no, but it'd be really good if you could reconsider and you and Jeff could come down and you can make a weekend out of it. So the reunion will be in Melbourne. And I didn't see it. Like last week, I was recording a couple of episodes of the podcast. I was like eyeballs deep in editing and uploading and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to move this story along. And then someone who works in the Humans Connecting team, he's preferred to be silent, but we'll call him Jay. And Jay and I have known each other since we were 16 when he came to school in year 11. We went through university together. And, so there's not many other people in the world who have known me as long as Jay has. And Jay sent me a message on WhatsApp saying, M sent him a message as well, sent him an email, what do you reckon? Let's do the reunion together. And that would have been Thursday last week. And again, I was like, oh, no, don't want to. Some of the stories were going through my head. And I thought something clicked within me last Thursday. And I'm like, hang on, if this is a real no, if this is some of the sources of my, like the stories that I've been telling myself about my worthiness for belonging, my worthiness for love, for acceptance, for who I am, then kind of need to stop and look at it and sit with it. I need to welcome it. I need to do what I said in the episode, particularly in episode 3, what I said that encouraged you to do. I needed to do that myself. So that night, I mentioned to Jeff as we were getting into bed, and he was just like, without hearing too much of the story, he was just like, yep, let's make it happen. Like we'll try and do it. But some of the things that were going on in my mind was just like, yes, it'd be good, but it's kind of expensive to get to Melbourne. Money's a bit tight right now. And Jeff's like, no, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. And like I was given fewer places to hide, and I don't mean that in a malicious way, but in a very loving way. And so that was Thursday night, and then Friday morning last week. So again, it's Monday afternoon now when I'm recording this. On Friday morning, I messaged M back and I like, okay, we're into it. We're in. Jeff and I are coming, like count us in. I messaged Jay and I said, yep, we're in. Let's do it. And within moments, M responded back with a message on Messenger that had lots of exclamation marks. And I went back to him like, I'm podcasting about this. Just so you know, I'm going to podcast about this. And she was like, yes, please do, because so many other people are reluctant to go as well. Now, this is, for many different reasons, I'm sure, and all of them are perfectly great. But for me, what happened after sort of going, right, I need to we need to do this and saying, yes, we're coming. Um, and the stories sort of came back with an absolute vengeance. And some of the very quick kind of flashes of memories sort of came to mind and came to heart. And that was pretty tough. I'm like, oh shit, what have I done? I so don't want to go right now. And I noticed after a few minutes that I went into logistics. I thought, okay, it's this weekend. Where are we going to stay? Where are we going to go? How are we going to get to where we need to be? How are we going to get to the venue? Oh my God, we know so many people in Melbourne who have not been to Melbourne for ages. Um, and oh my God, we can only really afford to go for a few days, but there's like 3 weeks of coffees and dinners and all that kind of stuff with all the people that we know and want to catch up with in Melbourne. And my mind kind of went into organizing logistics mode. And I caught myself. I caught myself. And I was ready to jump on, a travel app to book the accommodation and start booking in like 1 hour slots. We were going to be highly caffeinated, it seems, this weekend in Melbourne. And I caught myself in another tell. And when I'm uncomfortable, when I'm doing something that has me at my edge. And the key was in the logisticizing, in the getting into the nitty-gritty of all of the logistics and really quickly. Avoiding discomfort through the busyness. That's what I was doing. And which I think, again, in episode 3, I said that was one of my tells. And I was like, I'm doing that. So I needed to do something different that wasn't like logistics. So I came back to this laptop and I saw Spotify. And so I opened Spotify and typed in 1994 and up came hits of 1994. Did I say 1984 before? I meant 1994. And I started playing what was there, what was the music at the time in 1994. And some of the music was quite terrible. Looking at You, Wet, 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 Love Is All Around Me. But then some of the music was awesome, like the Cranberries and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and early The Prodigy and Beck and all of this great music that has stood up pretty well, and some other music that really just needs to stay back in 1994 and not be spoken of again. I started to allow myself to go back within sort of in the way that music allows us to do into ourselves and kind of be with 17-year-old me as I was in 1994. And it's funny, what kind of music, how music makes me remember someone who absolutely loved that song, or who like me may not have enjoyed that song, or where I was when I heard that on the radio, or something like that. It was, it was kind of good. And then later that day, um, and I apologize if this is rambling, but I'm kind of just going through my notes because I started to, in saying to M, that I'm going to be podcasting this and talking about it on the podcast. And was like, yes, 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 do it. And I'm like, okay, I don't trust my memory. I'm going to like start writing some notes. So this is sort of, I'm just going through my notes now. So if it is all over the shop, that kind of reflects how I've been over the past few days. But later that day, after like with the playlist sort of going through the speaker here, I thought, oh, like the reunion is at a pub, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to need a drink to get through it. And like you weren't to know this, but I've not been drinking alcohol since January. And 1 week a month, we've been sort of practicing sobriety. Um, and the week that was in January, I've just kind of kept it going, and I feel great for it. And I thought, oh, I need to like really have a few drinks to make it through that reunion, which will be in July. But I'm already thinking of like how I will respond. And I'm like, whoa, that's a bit odd, Phil. Like already planning like alcohol consumption. And immediately I'm like, I need to do this sober. I need to go through this event sober so I can go through this event. I need to go to this event sober so I can like be there, um, and be me, a 47-year-old man there. Um, and yeah, so that's what I'll be doing. I'll be doing this sober. And then on Friday, I was out for a walk, and I sort of had this flash in my mind of like, what if I forget people's names? Oh my God, that'd be horrible. Someone remembers me and they'll be like, hello, you. And I was like, that kind of momentary panic. Like, shit, what if I forget someone's name? Like, pretty sure I will remember, like, I'll remember most people's names, I'm sure. But it's not as if there won't be name tags. I think I'll be pretty good. And I reminded myself that while I may not have the best memory at times for people's names, I could remember something about you. And that's kind of my thing. Um, and I'll remember like stuff about someone and have a conversation based on that. But I'm pretty sure there'll be name tags. Um, and then a little while in that walk, after I reassured myself that there will be name tags, and if you're listening to this, there will be name tags. I had another momentary panic, where I like, what if I have absolutely nothing to say? And um, yeah, that felt really like real. That felt really real. I'm like, oh no, I can't go because I'll have absolutely nothing to say to people. And it would just be like this kind of case study in awkwardness of like sort of standing around like nursing a water, or I don't know, a soft drink if I'm feeling a little crazy. Um, what if I have nothing to say? And I can't. At that one, I chuckled to myself, and I'm like, Phil, really? Um, I have this skill that has, helped me in my career to relate to people in like almost any way. I can, you know, while I don't have much time for small talk, in the fact that I don't really enjoy it, I can do it. I can do it really well. And I'd much rather have like a real conversation with someone, but I don't think that I will ever have nothing to say. Um, and the last however long this episode's been so far, probably pretty much a test that I can pretty much, I was about to say something that would sort of reflect poorly on me, but like I can relate to people. I was about to say, I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, but I think it's a real skill, and I'm grateful for that skill. And me being able to relate with people can help them put them at ease as well. And yeah, so that was the Friday. Then on that, and Jeff came home on Friday night, and I'm like, I've paid for, going to the reunion and all that kind of stuff. So, it's on. Then on Saturday morning, I was in the shower, and just like you, in the shower, I tend to have like my mind wanders, and had these thoughts, and another momentary panic. And what if I went to myself? What if the people at the reunion break off into their friendship groups like they were back in, at school, and continue their conversations just like it was when we were at school. Um, and I was kind of, I think I shared earlier, on the periphery of so many friendship groups. And like one of the stories that I tell myself, and about the memories that I have of not belonging were, by like year 12, there were so many parties um, that friends were hosting that I didn't get invited to. And then when I did get invited to some parties, I'd go to the parties and I'd feel really out of place. Like I was, and so, I kind of like if I went, I didn't feel like I fit in. And if I didn't go or wasn't invited, that was confirmation that I really didn't fit in. And the idea of, being in this venue for the reunion and seeing people just like they did in the Year 12 common room, like sitting around in groups, having these conversations that were happening in 1994. Um, I'm like, oh God, I'm not gonna fit in. I'm not gonna belong. I'm gonna be like standing on the periphery again. I'm gonna be like, just on the outer edges of each of these conversations, and stuff. And the thought came to me that I didn't feel that I would belong, just like I felt like I didn't belong when I was at school. For some of the times that I was at school. And that one was hard. That one was hard. And I reminded myself of some of the work that I've done is that, I belong everywhere, and I belong nowhere. So that's from Maya Angelou. I belong everywhere when I belong to myself. And I reminded myself that I belong to me now. Um, and so that was sort of that belonging piece on Saturday morning negotiated. And then I started to sort of play in my mind the stories again, when someone was, saying things that they would say back in like year 9 or year 10, or you know, say, yeah, do you remember when this happened and how, like, and something that would cause me shame. And I started to like go, okay, well, if someone says this, I would say that to like shut them up. I would say this, I would say that. I would say the thing that my 14-year-old self would really want to say, but sort of was just trying to get through the day. And I started sort of having this kind of shopping list of responses. And yeah, I was like, oh, there's my storytelling mind. There's my storytelling mind going on again. And I was like, maybe I could just like go in with an open mind and an open heart. And then Sunday came around. And on Sunday morning, went for a run. And it occurred to me that I was really scared. I was scared about this reunion. I was scared that, you know, in high school, I was a teenager who was really struggling with my sexuality. I was hiding myself. I was desperately trying to not be found out. There was plenty of other ways that people could kind of torment me. And it was not good if that was, you're gay. And I'm scared because going to this reunion, I'm now an out gay man. And, they won't see me for how I've grown, how I've evolved, who I am now. They'll see me as I was in school. And a little while later, that felt very real. And a little while later, so I thought, oh my God, can I get over myself, please? I said this in a kind and loving way, but essentially, I need to get over myself. It is as if I am the central player in everybody else's and everyone is there and going to be wanting to know I'm the central character and they're all like big players. Like how ridiculous. How ridiculous is that? Um, and, really just a reminder that I'm not the center of everybody else's world. Um, and people have grown, people have evolved. And that was sort of, in saying that people have grown and people have evolved in their own ways. And then it occurred to me that if I've grown and evolved and I'm asking for other people to see and acknowledge and accept that I have grown, that I have evolved, that I'm more me than ever, I need to accept that others have grown, others have evolved, others will show up just as they are. Others will show up who are nervous, others will show up who are also like sitting with that discomfort, that awkwardness, bringing their stories of shame and hoping that they don't come up. Um, uh, People's fear of small talk, people sort of sitting there going, um, like, I really need a few drinks to get through tonight. Um, all of those kind of things. I need to let other people have grown and evolved in the last 30 years as well. Um, and that's that's where I am right now. So there's a couple of things that I want to say just in conclusion, in wrapping up this episode. Something comes to mind that I wanted to say, um, and it's an expression that I've heard, and we're going to be exploring this in the next episode. And the concept is fear screams and the heart whispers. And I'm going to be speaking with the human who I learned that expression from in the next episode. But for now, I just wanted to say that this is an episode, this is an event where the fear really screamed. It's like, no, don't go. Don't be stupid. Don't go. Stay in Canberra. Stay home. Stay safe. Stay all of these kind of things. Don't go. And then within me, it's like, actually, it'd be really nice. It'd be really nice just to see what's going on with people, to reconnect with people. And actually, if I'm honest, it would be really nice to be me as the 47-year-old me now amongst a whole lot of people who knew me 30 to 36 years ago, who I've seen grow. I've seen, like I've got story with them. Like, do you remember in year 10 in history when this happened? And, I put my feet on the heater and my shoes on the heater and the rubber soles melted and, and the room stank. Do you remember when that happened? Um, Probably not. No one ever remembers that. I remember that. But yeah, like a whole lot of people who I have known and knew all that time ago, and in my life there are not that many people who knew me that long ago. So it'd be really nice to like connect with them, if only for an evening, if only for a conversation. It's not for a lifetime. But to do that, I need to go there. I need to be seen. I need to be heard. So I feel that I belong. And I say this to you, and I'll keep on saying this to you on this podcast. Our work here at Humans Connecting is all about that. And I'm sharing all of this with you, what's going on within me, so you know that I'm not immune to this. I still have to go through this. I go through this. And I wanted to sort of walk you through that kind of like panic. What if I have like, if I forget people's names? Like, relax, me, relax. There'll be name tags. What if I don't have anything to say? It's like, you always have something to say. So, um, and you know, I'm sure I'll keep on going through this, and there'll be moments, and I'm like, oh my God, what if? Oh my God, what if? Right now, it's just like, oh my God, what if people going to the reunion hear this? What if they hear this? I'm like, okay, like I can't control any of that, but I'm showing up for you. So if you actually knew me, we're at school together, and you know you're contemplating whether you're going to the reunion, I'd love to see you. I'd really love to see you, even if we weren't close at school. Like I'd love to hear what's going on for you, because I'm there for you. I'm there for the humans. I'm there for like, yeah, I'm there for me. And like the 14-year-old me, I'm there for the 15, the 16, the 17-year-old me. I'm there for the 12-year-old scared as shit little kid with, you know, but I'm now looking forward to it. I'm now looking forward to it. But Jeff wanted me to say this in wrapping up this episode. He wanted to let you know that we're actually going to be like recording closer to the time. It's going to be in July. Like voice memos and creating an episode of the podcast sort of based on like how Phil feels now, um, and like before the event and after the event. So yeah, that kind of feels like, I don't know, some kind of fun podcasting thing to just do. So yeah, great idea, my love. Well done. Um, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say for this episode. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you thought about it. So please comment on YouTube and on our social channels. I just said that. Just wanted to let you know that this being so deeply like personal, I kind of don't want you to comment on it. But yeah, like please do comment on it. Please do check our website, humansconnecting.org, for details about how we can support you get the connection that you need and deserve. So you can also stand with your loneliness, welcome it in as a friend, just kind of like through the process that I just explained to you over the last little while. And we also have some services for workplaces to create connected workplaces. All of that is at humansconnecting.org. And if you are a business and you want to um, look for ways, if you're looking for ways to support humans to feel more connected and you want your business to have a positive social impact, please check the link in the episode description to partner with us. And partnering with us could look like advertising on future episodes of the podcast or collaborating with us in other ways. Okay, I'm feeling better now. And I just want to say thank you so much for sitting with me with that discomfort. Yeah, I can't wait to explore more about fear and listening to our whispering hearts in the next episode. So until then, I want to say thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Yeah, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode.